Hiya. So I did a stupid, because I had filmed this beautiful intro where I was unveiling one of my blind date with a books, and describing the clues and talking about what kind of book I thought it would be, and even thinking about what kind of cover it would be, and then recording my reaction when I found out what it was, and talking about how excited I was and blah blah blah, and I must have deleted it or something because it ain't there anymore. So that beautiful video is gone. Just don't mourn it, it's gone. I mourned it enough for everybody. So I don't have this lovely exciting video of what is it. But I can tell you that the book, so basically it was a blind date with a book, and the clues were epic, saga, contemporary, and silkworms. And I had some theories, but in the end, the book that it was Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides, which I was like, oh, okay. But then I saw that he's the author of The Virgin Suicides, and I was like, oh, that's on my TBR for sure. And then I started reading the back, which is this. Dangling a silver spoon over her daughter-in-law's belly, Desdemona confidently predicts that her next grandchild will be a boy. But a rogue pair of chromosomes descended from the slopes of Mount Olympus will survive war, bootleggers, and heartbreak to finally unite in Calliope Stephanides, a baby girl who upsets all the odds. Growing up in Michigan, Calliope is the bearer of a family secret that turns her into Cal, the narrator of this intersex, intergenerational epic. And as I was reading that, I was like, hold on, this sounds awfully familiar. And basically, this book is also on my TBR list. So I am super excited to read it. There's not enough books about intersex people, so it immediately went on my TBR list as soon as I read about that. And I'm really, really excited to read it, read more about what it is. It's clearly a multi-generational sort of thing. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to read more about this, and yeah, more about the book itself. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick update. I started reading Middlesex, but I haven't really started reading it. So as I've said before, I read everything, all the quotes in the beginning that are this book is amazing, author's notes, acknowledgements, all of that. So I've only read the quotes, which is always interesting because they always give you some hints as to what the book is going to be about and stuff. And having read all those quotes, I'm getting a massive feeling that this book is going to be a lot like Cloud Cuckoo Land, which I have literally just read. It's not the last book, but the second to last book I read, and I loved it. But yeah, I'm getting the feeling it's gonna be the same thing. I'm gonna be sad, I'm gonna be happy, I'm gonna be devastated. It's gonna be this epic journey. And I said the book wasn't very long because the packaging must have made it seem thinner than what it was. Because now it's out of the packaging, I'm looking at it and I'm like, and it's almost 550 pages. Those are my guinea pigs. So yeah, I think it's gonna be another epic that I'm gonna work through, like Cloud Cuckoo Land. I'm hoping it's gonna be as easy to read and as amazing as Cloud Cuckoo Land, because I love Cloud Cuckoo Land and I got through it really quickly actually. But yeah, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling it's like Cloud Cuckoo Land, different people in different times in history, although I know it's slightly different because this is more like a family history. And yeah, Alright, I'm out and about and I popped into a charity shop and I have a problem because I bought this, which I've already read. But it was like, oh, I do kind of want to read it again because it's a good book. I am now in a new workplace, and that workplace has a place called the library, and in it there's books and you can take them, you can read them, you can then bring them back. So on Tuesday I was like, okay, and I was browsing, and I picked up 2 books, even though I don't need any more books to read. But look, these are the books that I picked up. Oh, where's the other one? But there is Gender Games by Juno Dawson, and then In Their Shoes I also picked up because I was like, oh, I think it's on my wish list anyways. And then I got home and I put them both there, and I looked the following day a little bit more, and this again, bookshelf, and look what's there. In Their Shoes. A friend of mine had already given it to me. But anyways, I have it now. And in fact, on Tuesday I had an absolute nightmare getting home. The tube was broken down. It took me like 4 stops to travel. It took me 1 hour to travel 4 stops on the underground. And then I was there, getting on the tube, and my phone was already almost dead. So I was like, crap, and I turned my phone off. But then I had a tablet, which I had prepped. I was prepped. My tablet had some shows on it for me to watch and blah blah. But for some strange reason, my tablet was also on 15%. So I was like, and I could watch it 3 stops, a little bit less than an hour, half an hour or so, and then it died. So then I had no tablet, I had no phone, I had no music because my phone was dead. I had nothing to watch, and I didn't take a book because I'm currently reading a book I borrowed, and my bag always destroys everything I put into it, so I didn't take the book with me. But then I was like, the only books I have are the books I took from the library. So I started reading In Their Shoes. So thank God for that, because otherwise I would have sat there for an hour and a half and just been looking at people, being a weirdo on the London Underground. So yeah, I have a problem. Hello. So, Odin and I want to talk to you about Middlesex. We have now finished it. What are you eating? He's always eating something. Right, let me put him down before he pees on me. I need to gather my thoughts for this one, right? So obviously this was my blind date with a book that I unveiled. I was really, really happy with it because it was actually already on my TBR list. So it was great that it was that book. I was very excited about reading it. But as I already alluded to in my halfway through thing, unfortunately, I did not like it as much as I thought I would. And I will come to the reasons for that in a moment. But yeah, just generally, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. So about halfway through, I kind of struggled a little bit with why I found it hard. I did say some things like that it felt sometimes a bit lengthy and the chapters were quite long. And it just, I couldn't, and I don't know why, but I couldn't quite emotionally connect with the characters. Even though some like really like impactful things happen to them, and I'll do a spoiler section later where I talk about that. But I found it like I just couldn't get into it. I found the beginning quite difficult to read for a variety of reasons, some of which I can only reveal in the spoiler section. But then there was like, so the book basically charters the narrator Cal's life. Cal / Calliope is an intersex person that was born, I think in the 60s? Yeah, in the 60s. And it's basically just charting their life. But Cal is also the narrator, so it's a first-person narrative. I've realized that I'm not sure I like first-person narrative. It's supposed to kind of put you into the story more, but for me, it's just like it puts me out of the story because I'm like, well, that's on me. I know that's not happening to me, sort of thing. And I also really struggled because Cal, as a narrator, was like omnipotent. Like, they knew everything, right? Like, they knew things where you're like, some things you're like, oh, maybe, your grandparents told you about this. But some things you're like, you don't know this. You can't know this. Like, the position that his grandparents received their son in, sort of thing. You're like, your grandma didn't tell you that. Your deeply religious great grandma did not tell you that. And then I like about a little bit more than halfway through, I think, the narrator does say that they are like sort of all-knowing. But I'm like, I kind of needed that at the beginning, because at the beginning, for a long time, I was like, but how do you know this? And that again put me like out of the story. So it was very weird. Like, I don't know, I just didn't like the narration in that way, because it made me go, but you can't know this, sort of thing, all the time. And then it kind of pulled me out of the story. Maybe that's one of the reasons that I couldn't connect to the characters, whereas if it had been told in third person, I would have maybe had an easier time accessing it, but that's just me. And Cal basically tells their story, and it's a story that basically goes back to his grandparents fleeing from Greece, settling in America, having their children, and then it goes to Cal, so it's an epic, generational epic in that way, that it goes through different generations. Now, I did find it very weird because I really struggled through the grandparents part, like I said, for a variety of reasons. But then the parents part was so short, because I was like, oh, okay, now come to parents. But then it was really, really short. I was gonna do it before, and I just remembered I was gonna do this. I'm gonna actually look at how much is the grandparents, how much is basically the parents. Like, obviously the grandparents are still in the parents and in Cal's story, but do you know what I mean? And then how much of it is Cal's story of themselves. Let me do it now. Apparently I'm an idiot. When I went back to edit this video a few months later, I realized that I only had that first video, and I don't know what happened to the rest of this beautiful video I shot. Which means that this beautiful video shot with lots and lots of quotes and me reading from the book and explaining my feelings and my thoughts, yeah, that's all gone. Like, bye-bye. I don't know what's going on with this video. It's just broken. But I did promise you the unevenness of the book. So this is the book. So this bit is all Desdemona and Lefty, which are the grandparents. And this small bit in the middle is the parents, and then this bit is, but this bit is actually a little bit shorter because it kind of merges into like the other person's story kind of about halfway back here. So yeah, it just felt very uneven. And then obviously both of these stories continue in this part as well. So it's just, it felt very uneven to me. I felt like I was reading lots and lots about the grandparents and then like nothing much about the parents. And then, to be fair, I didn't need to read that much about the parents. They were rather boring. But then we went straight into Cal's story. So there. So what I'm going to have to do now is kind of go back to some notes that I rewrote. Also from like things that I've read. And then hopefully I'll be able to kind of give you an idea of how I feel about this book and why I feel about this book this way. But unfortunately, like I say, all my lovely quotes and stuff, I had lots and lots of quotes, they're all gone. I really hope this is the only video where this is gonna happen. Right, so I've got my notebook paper where I wrote what I remembered, and I reread some reviews to kind of bring back some memories as well. But generally, a lot of people really praised the writing in this book, but I actually didn't enjoy it that much. I thought it was unnecessarily verbose. It felt to me like somebody who was trying to show how smart they were by using like lots of metaphors and ways of writing things. And it was like, it's actually not really like needed. Like there were some really strange descriptions of things, like and weird naming conventions. So Cal, or Callie's older brother, is only ever referred to as Chapter 11. And when it first happened, I was like, ooh, that's a smart thing. Like, they're gonna name it Chapter 11 because he shows up in Chapter 11. Yeah, no, he just is called Chapter 11. And there's no explanation ever on why he's called Chapter 11. And apparently some people think that was brilliant. And I'm like, no, it's not, because I have no freaking idea why they call them Chapter 11. Why is he being called Chapter 11? There's no explanation of that whatsoever. So, and then some just very odd descriptions, which again I had quotes for and lost them, unfortunately. One description, and there was some weird graphic detail sometimes, because obviously we all know that Cal is intersex. And there's obviously a part of the book that deals with Cal, back then still as Callie, discovering their unique anatomy. But to me, at least, it was described in really unnecessarily graphic detail. And again, sometimes with very strange ways of describing it. Like, one thing I remember quite vividly is that her micro penis that she had because of her, or he had, because of his like intersex condition, was at one point described as like a crocus emerging, and I was like, so unnecessary. And I just felt it was very, I don't know, it was weirdly graphic, and there was seemingly a lot of focus on the anatomy of an intersex person, which to me felt sometimes a bit voyeuristic, and especially because I know that Jeffrey Eugenides didn't do any research with intersex people when he wrote this novel, like none, nada. So, and that felt very, I mean, I don't understand. I'm not one of those people that thinks a writer shouldn't be able to write about things that they themselves haven't experienced. But if you're going to write about a very, very emotional topic that you yourself have not experienced, do your damn research. And apparently he just didn't feel that was needed. And there's some intersex people that have really related to this book and said it made them realize things about themselves. But there's also a lot who had a lot of issues with this book. And I personally, I'm not intersex or trans, but it felt uncomfortable to me the way that it sometimes seemed almost voyeuristic and like they wanted to show, you know, ooh, look at all this that's happening. Isn't it weird and weird? So yeah. I didn't like that. And a lot of people actually say this. The book also felt to me like it was actually two books kind of merged together. Like it felt like a book about an immigrant family from Greece settling in America and experiencing like America at that time. And then there was a novel about an intersex person, and it felt like they didn't really mesh together. And I felt like you could have cut one of the two out or just made them two separate novels. Like, there was no... I feel like it was unnecessarily long when it didn't need to be that long. Yeah, a lot of things were also seemingly treated very surface level. Like, there's talkings about the original conflict that made Desdemona and Lefty leave Greece, but again it was described like over a couple of pages. There was the race riots were mentioned, but again, and it was mentioned very much from their perspective of it, but again it was treated quite surface level. And even once, you know, the whole Cal being intersex came up, even that felt very surfacey. I mean, we'll talk more about it in the spoiler section, but it felt just very like, and then they're intersex. And there was like no exploration of like the thought patterns that might emerge when you realize that you are, you know, both. Yeah. I think it also was marketed as an intersex novel in a way, a little bit. Which kind of makes it a little bit tricky, I think. Cal as an adult, so he writes the book basically looking back on his life, and there is bits of him living as an adult man with his intersex condition, and that's barely explored. He has a relationship with a woman, but it's like just snippets, and you are like, I want to actually know more about you. It feels weirdly cut off at a certain point. And yeah, sometimes to me, I mean, I have no idea. I'm not Jeffrey, but it certainly felt to me like Jeffrey was like, ooh, what would my novel be like if I wanted to win a prize for it? And then kind of was like, ooh, family drama, ooh, this sort of kind of interesting angle, and then kind of merge it all and then put some weird writing on top. And it felt very, like, I didn't enjoy it at all. I don't know if I've said it already, but I think I gave it a 2.5 or 2. I think a 2. At the time, I didn't enjoy it. I'm reading the Persians as I'm rereading this, and Persians is like at a 2 to a 2.5, and I think Middlesex was worse. Yeah, I didn't really enjoy the novel at all. I'm not gonna do like a spoiler section where I talk a little bit more about each of the lives. So stick around if you want to listen to that. And hopefully that will make it also a little bit clearer on why I feel about it the way I do. So let me start talking about spoilers. So the big spoiler, and it's mentioned in some like reviews and stuff, so it's like a spoiler that's not really a spoiler. The grandparents, Desdemona and Lefty, were actually brother and sister, so they were living in Greece, and they were apparently, I initially thought Lefty was gay, but no, he was into his sister. So they were living in Greece. They declared their love to each other. But then shortly after that happened, the Turks invaded Greece and they had to leave. In the process of leaving, they managed to kind of play it off as they are just two people who have just met on this boat that was carrying people from Greece to the States, and then pretended that they had fallen in love on this journey and got married on this journey, started sleeping together, and then stayed when they were in the States with their cousin, whose name I can't remember now. Can't remember her name. And her cousin would their cousin would know that they were brother and sister, but they trusted that she wouldn't say anything because she was a lesbian. And that was famously why she was sent off to the States and married to a man that wasn't a proper man really for her to marry. A man called Jimmy, who kind of looked like he might have had Muslim heritage. Because apparently being a lesbian is the same as committing incest. And personally for me, I'm like, if you've grown up as brother and sister, to me, it's odd, it's weird, I don't get it. I'm like, ew, and I actually found, like, I just don't get it. Like, when people don't know each other and then find out and fall in love, like, that's different, because they don't know each other, they haven't grown up with each other, they haven't picked on each other as brother and sister and when they were 6 or 7, and it's just weird to me how then somebody could fall for their brother or sister, though admittedly it is mentioned that there aren't really many opportunities in that little village they were living in for finding a partner. But I found the beginning of that novel very, very hard to get through because I was very, like, not on board. And I also felt like the incest wasn't really ever treated as, like, yeah, it shouldn't happen. Like, the aunt, I want to say Seema, but their cousin did not have an issue with it either, really. She was like, okay, whatever. It felt like, I don't know, it wasn't just ever explored. There were some moments where Desdemona had nightmares about their children being born with deformations and things like that, but other than that, none of them ever really thought about the consequences of their love and whether their love was right. So they have 2 children, one of them being Milton, and then I'm just gonna call her Zima. I don't know if that was her name. Zima and Jimmy also have children. They were very much kind of early on raised their children together because they were all staying in one house together and they were raising their children together while Lefty and Jimmy were off working. They were rum runners for a while, and at one of their trips, Jimmy actually had an accident and broke 3 eyes and was then declared dead. But yeah, they basically their children grew up together, and then as they grew up, Milton fell in love with Tessie, which is Aunt Seema's daughter. So then first cousins also married each other and had a child, and that is apparently how that gene was passed down, which in a review I said it was quite problematic because it almost made it seem like, oh, intersex people are like clearly descended from people who were doing things they shouldn't have been doing, which is totally not true. But anyways, so that happened. So then I was like, oh, I thought I had gone past the incest part. All right, we're still here a bit. And then Milton was becoming a successful businessman. Tessie, I don't know, she didn't really have much of a character that I remember. Blah 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 blah. Calliope very much grew up like a girl, but she was always a bit tall and gangly. She had a lot of big, furry, messy hair, which is also kind of a Greek ancestry. they very much, when they moved to the US, it was Prohibition area Detroit, and there were some really nice descriptions of Prohibition area Detroit, actually, and how it was working in like a car factory. And then there were also some, beautiful, not beautiful, but quite nice descriptions of the slums that Black people would be living in. And Desdemona actually at one point goes working for an Islamic Muslim church that is mainly populated by Black people, and she initially has a lot of problems because they were very anti-Black as a family. I think back then Greek people were very anti-Black, and obviously there was anti-Black sentiment throughout the US at that time. But they were trying to learn how to make their own garments and not be reliant on white people for their clothing. And so Desdemona was teaching them about silkworms, and she was getting like some real relations and friendships with the girls that were working with her, which made it even weirder that when, at a later point, as a flashback, Cal talks about his grandmother when she was an old woman, talking about that time, kind of going like, Black people. Because then it seemed again like, but you had that period where you realized Black people aren't actually that different from us. And you had some really kind of nice friendships develop from that. But then apparently when you got older, you went back to being racist against them. Like, it just seemed very strange. And then Jimmy actually pops back up, because Jimmy is actually the mysterious leader of that church who has reinvented himself, and there's a very weird scene where she's, as a woman, is not allowed to attend his sermons, but she does meet him in a church just as she has to leave, and he's standing there, and then he starts talking to her and calling her by her name, and she's like, how does he know my name? And then realizes it's Jimmy, and I'm like, but he looks like Jimmy and he talks like Jimmy, surely still, and like has the statue of Jimmy. Like, I work with some people who I only met once a month, maybe if they were not on holiday. Yet I would be able to pick them out by the way they were standing, by the way they were holding themselves and walking. And you're telling me she has lived with that man for like 10 years or something like that, and then could not recognize him when he was standing like a few feet in front of her. Anyways, but again, sometimes it's like still very surface level, then kind of dives into Cal's story. As Calliope, she realizes that she is becoming quite obsessed with a friend of hers that's only ever referred to as the thing or the object. I think the object. And they actually enter a sexual relationship, so the object does become aware of her intersex condition, and they kind of do experimentations, but then something happens. Again, I found those bits, like, nothing against that sort of stuff happening, but again, it felt very kind of voyeuristic in a way. But anyways, so then something happens while they are together, and Cal has an accident, and that's when they end up in the emergency room and when their intersex condition is discovered. And his parents then take him to a gender, like, specialist, who then basically doesn't do much tests, and then Cal finds out through sneaking a look at his file that he is basically a boy with some characteristics of a girl. And as soon as he finds that out, while they are in New York, he runs away, cuts his hair, and starts living as a boy. And I found that, again, like, I totally believe that revelation, and I mean, they knew something was different about them anyways. Like, they had a whole thing about not showing themselves and things like that. But, so, like, it felt a bit weird that they would be like, like, they already knew something was not right about themselves. And then it also felt a little bit strange that there was we were in Cal's had, and there was no exploration of like his mental state or why he chose to run away. It was just like he ran away, and I was like, yeah, but I'm in his head. Surely I would get a bit of, this is how I'm feeling right now, or whatever. This is how I felt back then. There was none of that, and he then kind of went on to work in a sex club, kind of showing his uniqueness with other performers who were also unique and hermaphrodites and things like this, until I can't remember what happens, but something happens, and he comes, I think maybe his father was having a medical issue, and he decides to come home and then starts living as a boy. And that's kind of where the novel cuts off. Like, there's no exploration of how that went, or no real exploration of how his family was reacting to it. Like, I just found that there wasn't, like, the bit that I was actually interested in reading, there was no real in-depth exploration of the issues, of the emotional turmoil that would come up, of the change in family, none of that. So I was very disappointed in it, and even more disappointed when I realized that the author didn't actually do any research, although that made then a lot of sense to me. I actually found the relationship that he's trying to have in the present time with Julie most interesting while he's living in Berlin, and trying to navigate his intersex condition that he never chose to get surgically changed. You know, but we get so little of that, well, there's not much there. But yeah, that's Middlesex. Those are my thoughts on it, and that's how I felt about it. And I didn't really enjoy it that much, I'm afraid. Jeffrey won't care because he's sold a lot of his books. But yeah, I was going to read The Virgin Suicides, but now I'm feeling like, maybe I don't want to read The Virgin Suicides. If it's more of the same, maybe not. Maybe I'll just watch the movie. Anyways.